Hello, welcome to Secure the Continent and News Central Television. I am Gbenga Aborowa. This is the program where we bring you the latest security updates across the African continent. But before we delve into today's program, we'd first like to bring you the top security headlines across Africa. One United Nations peacekeeper killed, 8 seriously injured in Mali. Sudan declares UN envoy Volker Perthes a persona non grata, accuses him of fueling ongoing war. Burkina Faso offers $300,000 reward in hunt for terrorists. And protest in Senegal leaves 23 persons dead. Amnesty calls for probe. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back after this. The United Nations Stabilization Mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, MONUSCO, is on the verge of leaving the country after 24 years. There are details for you in this intro package. Take a listen.
The United Nations Peacekeeping Force in the Democratic Republic of Congo, MONUSCO, is on the verge of leaving the country after 24 years. MONUSCO, which has been in the Central African nation since 1999, has been advised that its withdrawal should be as quickly as possible, but yet responsibly, in order not to aggravate an already difficult situation.
Ensuite, soutien à la protection des civils. Je l'ai dit, j'ai rappelé l'action critique, encore une fois, pour des centaines de milliers de civils de protection de la MONUSCO. Nous allons poursuivre évidemment ce travail et en même temps travailler avec les autorités congolaises pour que, je l'ai dit, le processus de montée en puissance de l'État congolais nous permette, nous, de diminuer graduellement cette présence de la MONUSCO, mais le faire de manière responsable. Encore une fois, je le souligne, il ne faut pas qu'il y ait de vide sécuritaire qui serait fatal à ces populations. Tout ça, évidemment, s'inscrit dans un contexte qui est aussi caractérisé, je l'avais indiqué au départ, par le processus électoral, dont il est essentiel qu'il se déroule dans la sérénité. Tout le monde a été préoccupé par les violences intervenues lors des récentes manifestations. Il y a une préoccupation qui s'exprime de la part de beaucoup de nos interlocuteurs quant au discours de haine, au discours xénophobe, au discours misogyne, au discours de confrontation ethnique. Et bien sûr, il est essentiel de mettre fin à ces discours.
MONUSCO's presence in the DRC costs the UN $1 billion every year, and yet the country still struggles to contain its foremost enemy in the east. Rebels in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo have been arguably the country's most difficult security challenge for more than 2 decades. With solutions still not in sight, and the local population growing increasingly displeased with the presence of the UN peacekeeping forces, a withdrawal seems to be the most plausible decision. However, there are regional forces willing to support the country's military. The East African Community, EAC, has sent troops to lend a hand to the Congolese army, but the state also needs to step up its own responses to the armed group that plagues the east of the country.
Now, joining me on the program tonight to assess the impact of the imminent withdrawal of MONUSCO forces from the Democratic Republic of Congo, I have Ajmal Sohail, is a senior counterterrorism and counterintelligence and geopolitical analyst. He joins us live from Munich in Germany. I also have Nixon Katembo, an analyst of the Great Lakes and East Africa region. He joins us live from Johannesburg, South Africa. One welcome to you, gentlemen, and thanks for joining me on the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Now, I'd like to start with you, Sohail, in Munich. How would you assess the current security situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and what were the major challenges faced by the United Nations Stabilization Mission in the Congo the peacekeeping force MONUSCO in maintaining security in the DRC?
So thank you very much for having me. Actually, I want to just share the background about what happened in Afghanistan when the American troops left Afghanistan. And the Taliban, or the terrorist organization, took over the country, and now you see that Afghanistan is turning to be a safe haven for the terrorist organization. So this is the same happened. You know that in August 2021, the Taliban took over Afghanistan, and November, just 2 months later, in November, the situation in Congo, in particular, and in general, in all of the Africans, in the entire African continent, is aggravated and escalated. So you'd see that there is some sort of connections between the advent of the Taliban in Afghanistan and also in the African countries, because Hazrat Musa, one of the Taliban representatives, who visited the African continent, and also specifically the Mozambique, and also he is trying to establish the relation between the Taliban and also some of the terrorist organizations like Al-Shabaab, and also the same like Madinat al-Tawheed al-Mujahideen, and also Ansar al-Sunnah. These organizations are connected somehow with the Afghan Taliban, also in the Middle East countries. They're smuggling weapons to Africa. In return, they are getting diamond and also gold. And meantime, they are bringing a lot of the Afghan heroin to the African countries, to the Mozambique, and also to Congo. And some of these drugs are intentionally given to or overdose the young kids in Congo to just get them in the war situation. So, and then of course some of the groups they are involved in the Congo, they are taking advantage of that, and then they are making their way. I mean, there's a heroin making its way to Europe and also to the United States. So it is a very, very good business for them. So entirely, if I see that, if this situation aggravate and the UN troops leave Congo, and I see that I think in December this year, there would be elections in Congo. And I think if the UN troops leave, and there would be no appropriate and right scenario to withdraw the troops of the UN troops from Congo, the Congo situation would be the same that what happened in Afghanistan. Okay. So you see that.
I'd like to bring in Nixon into the conversation at this point. Now, Nixon, do you agree with Sohail's point that, you know, if MONUSCO withdraws from the DRC, we might end up having an Afghan-type situation where the Taliban took over? Now, as a Congolese expert, how do you evaluate the impact of MONUSCO's presence in the DRC over the past 2 decades? Congolese citizens have openly come out to protest and say they want MONUSCO out. How did the Congolese people perceive MONUSCO's role in the country? And are there any concerns or expectations regarding their presence? Will they be missed when they eventually leave?
I think let me begin by saying, but equating the situation in Afghanistan with that of the Congo with respect to terrorism and Taliban is a misplaced argument in the sense that there are two geographical locations which have a different interest, but also the geopolitical dynamics that play out in the Congo and in Afghanistan are quite different. Hence, also the players within Afghanistan and the Congo are not similar, although there is an attempt in the Western capitals to equate this situation on the same level, trying to continue the kind sort of securitization and militarization of certain countries, so that there is a resource outflow for the benefit of a military industrial complex, but of course, Western economies through the swindling of the resources of these countries. Now, back to the Congo and the situation of MONUSCO, I think it is overdue. One would have thought that MONUSCO could have done what it was supposed to be doing, which was a stabilization of the country and to lead the country to sort of some sense of peace and security. And part of the mandate was also to train some of the military personnel in the DRC, allow some sort of security sector reform within the Congo as to allow the Congolese state to take over after MONUSCO have done its work. But 24 years later, there is nothing that has been done towards that front, and one wonder why. And to be honest, to say that this is a situation that is going to be in the Afghanistan lens, look at it in the Afghanistan lens, this will be a misplaced argument because
stay with you, Nixon. Stay with you, Nixon. You did mention why. I mean, if you had a check mark and if you were going to score MONUSCO out of 10, I'm sure you give them a really low score because you don't seem to be impressed with what they've done over the years. And we also have to take in mind this is the United Nations' largest peacekeeping operation and the most expensive. So to answer the why questions, why wasn't MONUSCO successful?
MONUSCO hasn't been successful because of a lack of political will, namely by those participants within the United Nations Security Council who are a party to the geopolitical dynamics that are going in the Congo since 1960. And it is no secret that the UN did not come in the Congo just after 1999 or the current political conflict. The UN have been in the Congo for quite some time. It was deployed there in 1960s, in 1964, and they left in 1971 or 72 there. So to answer directly to your questions, that this is because of the kind of the geopolitical interest that are within the Congo, particularly with its natural resources. And there have been a deliberate kind of move not to let the Congo stabilize and to leave it in a situation where it is so that resources can be swindled. And you can see that those who have been participating in the war, namely for the invasion by Rwanda and Uganda since 1996, supported by the United States, France, and the United Kingdom, but also other major European powers benefiting for the chaos that is going on in the Congo. So it is neither here nor there to argue that the UN should have succeeded in such a situation. And the second aspect to that is that the UN in itself has become a business in a way that sometimes back I was in Congo and I would see how peacekeepers are engaging in broad daylight business of mineral resources, swindling them out of the country without the state accounting for those resources, neither taxes being taken from those resources that are getting out of the country. So these are the challenges that we need to confront, and we need to speak about them openly and honestly.
Thank you very much, Nixon. Now back to you, Sohail. The United Nations, a senior United Nations official mentioned the need for a responsible withdrawal of peacekeepers. In your opinion, what factors should be considered to ensure a responsible withdrawal? And is there a risk of a security vacuum if the peacekeepers are withdrawn too quickly? And what consequences could it have for the population?
So the same that I'm just want to point out about again in Afghanistan. For example, the United States they left Afghanistan. They thought that the Afghan army is capable of protecting the country and they protecting the political stability and an economic well-being in Afghanistan. So when they left the country, and we see that the surrounding countries, they had all the stakes in Afghanistan, and every country they had their proxies, and with their proxies they push forward their strategic depth. So again, I'm talking about again to compare the Afghan situation with the Congo. It is the same when the UN will leave the country not responsibly as it did not happen in Afghanistan. That would happen in Congo as well, because the same the Republic of Congo is surrounded with their neighbors. Then these neighbors, they have stakes, and some of their neighbors are supported from the how can I say, the Middle East countries, and also possibly the Chinese, the Russians, and then the Americans, also the European countries. Every country has their own stakes, and every country could push through their proxies in the country. So if there wouldn't be any proper alternative, and there shouldn't be, for example, a proper way to withdraw, and there wouldn't be an alternative to replace the UN forces, and I'm sure what happened in Afghanistan, it will happen again in Congo, and that would be disastrous for the human community in general, because we have the same violence.
But Sohail, sorry to interrupt you. If you say what happened in Afghanistan will happen in Congo if the MONUSCO troops withdraw hastily, but Congolese people will say they beg to differ. The Congolese people have protested, and like you heard from your fellow panelists, they said, you know, they haven't been effective. They didn't really fulfill the mandate they were there to do, you know, to stabilize and provide security for the Congo. So if you're not effective, why then would you be missed? Why would there be a vacuum if you're gone?
So first of all, why, for example, if they are involved in smuggling, you can say the robberies, whatever. So if they are somehow involved in that, so it depends on the society. So the same when the society is corrupt, when the leadership is corrupt, when the politicians are corrupt, they make its way for the peacekeepers as well. The same, the Americans came to Afghanistan, they were not corrupt, but one of the corrupt country, one of the corrupt administration, the U.S. left was in Afghanistan. The same in Iraq. So the same would I can say that it is in Congo. The idea is that the UN peacekeeping forces, they are not corrupt, but the situation made them corrupt to be involved in corruption whatsoever. So I think there is the violence, there is the armed group presence in the ethnic violence. So if the UN leave, then how could we protect? How could we manage? However, I know that they are not effective as they should be, and they are not as crucial as they should have been, but still, as the British say, something is better than nothing, or less law is better than no law. So I know that the UN troops are corrupt, or the mission is corrupt. The mission is not as much effective as possible, but still,
okay,
it is way better than when they leave, and there would be a vacuum left, and then there would be armed groups representing different ethnic organizations and different ethnicity, and there would be warfare among them.
Thank you very much, Sohail. Now, back to you, Nixon. So many things to unpack here. So, senior United Nations official says, you know, the MONUSCO withdrawal should not be done hastily. You believe MONUSCO has not been effective, so therefore they won't be missed. As we speak, in the Democratic Republic of Congo right now, you have an East African Intervention Force. There's a SADC, the South African Development Community. They're going to send troops to the DRC to keep the peace. And of course, you have your own national army, the Congolese National Army. Now, do you agree with Sohail that, you know, if MONUSCO leaves, there will be a violence, that there will be a vacuum, and You know, it might just be like a free-for-all, the wild, wild west. And also, how can the Congolese state enhance its response to armed groups in the eastern part of the country? And did MONUSCO play much of a role in supporting the Congolese National Army in addressing the armed groups' threats?
I think, again, let me outrightly say that Sohail's argument is really misplaced and does not apply in the situation of the Congo the way I observe it as a person who comes from the country. Let me give you one example. There has been a precedent in terms of the withdrawal of the MONUSCO in parts of the country, one of which is the Kasai region, where as soon as the MONUSCO deployed there were issues of Kamwena Sapu. Once they were left after the killing of Michael Sharp and Zaida Catalan, the conflict has ended in the Kasai. The question is, how did it end without even the intervention of the state, or without even MONUSCO's intervention, except that there was a willingness on the part of the state to ask the MONUSCO forces to withdraw, who accepted willingly to withdraw, and therefore the Kasai region have stabilized once they left. We have seen a similar situation in the Katanga region, south of the South Kivu province, where the MONUSCO were, but as soon as they left, the region or the area has enjoyed a relative peace, except for where the MONUSCO is, including now the foreign countries, neighbors next door, the province of South Kivu and North Kivu, and then part of the Ituri province where these forces are concentrated, where we see multiple armed group festering there. Some of which are
I mean, I need to, for the sake of our viewers, we need to really get this straight, because where you see blue helmets, they're heroes, you expect them to keep the peace. And from the examples you've given, it seems the presence of blue helmets and the United Nations Peacekeeping Forces in Congo actually aggravates the situation. Could you speak more to that point? Are they doing the opposite of, why is it having the opposite effect? They are called peacekeepers for a reason.
Certainly, for the case of the Congo, they have been part of the problem. And they have been part of the problem in just one precedent that I have just explained to you. Now, I will go to a specific. Sometimes in 2013, a Pakistani commander was asked when are they leaving after the defeat of the M23. You know what he responded? No Ngunda, no jobs. No M23, no jobs. What does that tell you? That we need to sustain insecurity so that the presence of MONUSCO can be needed in the country. And this is what the Congolese people have been talking about, that we don't want them. There have been several protests. MONUSCO itself has participated in the killing of Congolese civilians as they protested. 34 of them died just last year in 2002. So it will be a relief for the Congolese themselves to see the back of these forces as to the aspect on which they can now rebuild their own country. You should not expect the outsourcing of the security of the Congo to the outside. The Congolese themselves has to take responsibility of that. And this is why, in my own analysis, I've been arguing that the Congo needs the security sector reform. The state needs to be allowed to build its institution to respond to the security challenges that the country faces. Other than that, the country will not see peace if you have multiple forces that are coming to the country. And similarly is what I have been arguing, that if you have decision makers at the UN Security Councils dealing with the mandate of MONUSCO, but at the same time, the very UN Security Council members, namely France, arming Rwanda, the United States, in its military partnership since 1996, arming Uganda and Rwanda at the same time, how do you expect peace to come in a region when there is no sincere political willingness on the part of those who are greater player in the region and at a geopolitical level and international level to see to it that they stop what they are doing in terms of allowing their proxies to enter into the Congo. You would recall that on the 2013, when the United States imposed the sanction on some of the key, threatened sanction on some of the key officials in Rwanda, the M23 was withdrawn within 2 weeks. So that tells you how much that unless there is a political willingness on the part of the major powers that are playing out their dirty war in the Congo by using certain proxies within the region, namely Rwanda and Uganda, and also those who are just there for their personal interests within the Congolese population, this war is not going to end, okay. And Congo might not be necessarily peace, regardless of whether the MONUSCO is there or the MONUSCO live. But it is better for the MONUSCO to live than staying in the Congo.
Okay, MONUSCO dégage. That is a fine place to go on a break. This is Secure the Continent on News Central Television. Welcome back to Secure the Continent and News Central Television, and we're still discussing the impending withdrawal of troops of the United Nations Stabilization Mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, MONUSCO. And I still have with us here esteemed analyst Ajmal Sohail, counterterrorism and counterintelligence and geopolitical analyst, is joining live from Munich in Germany, and also Nixon Katembo, an analyst of the Great Lakes and East Africa region, joining us live from Johannesburg, South Africa. Now, before we went on the break, Nixon did talk about the role of the international community. He said the international community lacks the political will on their part, and they're playing, global power, they're contributing to the destabilization of the Congo by supporting proxies like Rwanda and Uganda for their own gains. Now, so how can the international community support the Congolese state in its efforts to become more powerful and to ensure the security of its citizens? What lessons can be learned from MONUSCO's long-term presence, 24 years in the DRC, to inform future peacekeeping missions?
So I agree with my colleague that he said that there's no political will or there's no interest. Well, the UN peacekeepers were the international community on the top of that, because you know that in the same happened in our region as well, because the national security priority of the United States, France, Germany, or European countries who have stakes in Congo or in Africa, they're changing. So their priority is no longer to have a lot of interest in peacekeeping or whatever in African nation or African continent, unless the African people and the African nations they themselves are engaging in the political process and also democratization, as well as the well-being or the economic prosperity. So the international community, they are less interested because the changing dynamics of the geopolitical activities, it made the United States, made France, Germany, and other countries to focus on their national priority. For, as you know, that for the United States is what is a priority, for example, to safeguard the sea lane communications, and also a maritime terrorism is the most important thing, or access to the rare earth minerals, and also critical minerals, and food and water resources. So there is less interest for the international community, because when we are talking about the international community, so there is the United States, there is Germany, or mostly Western countries. So the Western countries are robustly facing a lot of a lot of, how can I say, challenges. For example, the war in Ukraine, they made the European country to think twice, because this is their priority, how to end the crisis in Europe itself. For the United States, how to, for example, manage the polarized society in the United States itself. And for the Arab countries, the changing the dynamic of the economy. So the Chinese electronics are taking over, and their how can I say, their natural resources. Nobody is or people are not interested in their natural resources. So which country is interested to invest heavily on the security, political, and also economic stability in these countries, unless the African countries themselves do not jump in? So that is the main thing that I'm calling on the African countries to get ready for the post-American or post-Western world, and they themselves should do something. And then when we are talking about the UN peacekeepers, so as I said, less law is better than no law, but still we have this possibility that to renegotiate their mission. So every time where the mission is, I mean, there is a missions and deal is made, and still, if you say it is not in the best of interest of your nations, of your people, and then you could call for renegotiation, and you could all the time for give and take. So I'm thinking about that. The withdrawal of the UN forces, that would be disastrous for the Congolese nation. But if the nation is of the interest for the stability.
Yeah, but sorry to interrupt you, Sohail. The United Nations mission has been there for 24 years, and they would have to go at some point. They can't stay in the DRC in perpetuity for eternity.
So this is what I'm talking. They were for 20 years, and there was a mission and there was a deal. So the deal was not in support of the Congo government or in support of the Congolese people. So this is the time to renegotiate. So these are the points, or that was the criteria. Now let us talk about the other terms which are the best interest of this country. So again, I'm talking about if they leave and we don't have an alternative. Let me reiterate it. If we don't have a proper alternative, and there would be a power vacuum, then there would be security vacuum, and we know that the communal violence and this ethnic armed group rivalry is on the rise already. The criminality is on the rise already. If this tip of this iceberg, when also this leaves the country, and then you see that what it happened in this country.
Thank you very much, Sohail. Now back to you, Nixon Katembo. Sohail says if the MONUSCO troops leave, there will be a power vacuum and security vacuum. My question to you is this. We do know that there's a East African intervention force at the DRC as we speak, and also it's in the pipeline to send troops from the Southern Africa region. And also, Congo does have its own national army. So is there that fear of a security vacuum if MONUSCO does withdraw? And also, the second part of my question is this. If you put on the news every other week, there's always some negative news coming out from the eastern part of the DRC. Now, what are the underlying factors to make our viewers understand the real situation in the Congo? What are the underlying factors that contribute to the persistence of armed groups in the eastern part of the DRC? How can these root causes be addressed to create a more secure environment? Because, I mean, Congo is an independent country, and you don't want foreigners and everybody with an opinion just coming to say, okay, this is how you should run your country. The guys from Southern Africa coming, we're sending troops. The guys from East Africa coming, we're sending troops. What's the best approach to this?
I think the best approach is we have to look at it one from a military point of view. MONUSCO has been there in the past 24 years. For any training of a soldier, it takes up from 3 months to 9 months. That is the general infantry or a normal, regular infantry division. For training of a special forces, it takes up from 18 months, that is 1.5 years, up to 3 years. Now, if there was a political willingness to secure the Congo and MONUSCO playing a role, one would have thought that the Congolese state would have been assisted, first in training its national army, professionalizing it, and therefore leave it to secure the borders and territory as well as the people of the Congo. That has not happened on the part of MONUSCO. Within the Congolese state itself, there seems to be a lack of a political direction towards that particular goal. However, those changes seems now to be coming as the Congolese people wake up to the reality that no one from outside will assist them. The coming of the East African forces or the SADC forces is in response to the geopolitical dynamics that are happening in the country. You would recall that Rwanda, which support the M23 and has deployed its forces there, this is not my own word saying, but the United Nations own reports and a group of experts saying that Rwanda has deployed there. Now look at it, who is arming Rwanda? France and the United States. Who is supporting them diplomatically and politically? The United Kingdom. And I can go on and on in describing many of the instances. Now let's go back to the armed group within the country. There are three different types of armed group in the country. Of course, those have been created as a deliberate move to allow the Congolese state to remain in a perpetual state of insecurity. One of them is such a response to what is seen as a invasion of the Congo, and therefore a local auto-defense group mushroom just to protect their own territory upon seeing how invaders or armed group from outside are killing their own people. That leads to the proliferation of arms, indeed. The second is these groups that are created by various players within the region, namely Rwanda and Uganda, as well as some key officers who were mixed in the Congolese National Army to steal the resources out of the Congo. Unfortunately, MONUSCO have been a part of this game. And therefore, MONUSCO going, I reiterate again, is -1 problem. Let the police themselves take up their own responsibility for their country and let the people decide their own future. And this will be hinges on political will on the part of those that are pulling the string from outside. And I have said before that the United States, the UK, France, Belgium, Germany, they are all part to this. China is part to this, and you will see that the kind of a greater power, geopolitical power playing out in the Congo as to who get hold of the resource of the Congo. You recall that Congo hold about 70% of the world cobalt natural resources. This is very critical for military industrial complex, but also world technological advancement. Congo hold about 60% of the world coltan. These are key mineral resources for Western industrial development. And we are not when we talk about MONUSCO and UN forces and this role, we are not factoring in all these issues that are at play in terms of international political dynamics, but also geopolitical contestation. So one have to take all this globally to look at the situation of the Congo and where the country finds itself.
One needs a holistic look and a deeper look to understand the situation in the Congo. Well said, Nixon. Now, Sohail, as we begin to wrap up our conversation tonight, with the imminent withdrawal of MONUSCO troops from the DRC, what measures should be put in place to strengthen the capacity of Congolese security forces and ensure their effectiveness in maintaining security?
So again, I say that regarding the intervention of some of the country to support, for example, the proxies, as my colleague said, there's all the time. We say that plausible deniability. So it remains. So you cannot, they will not accept it. So the plausible deniability will remain. And secondly, I reiterate. So let us not give a place for strategic negligence. So if we leave immediately with or without any possible alternative, there would be a strategic negligence, and that will not help the Congolese people. So I am just talking about how to support a long-term or lasting peace in the country and economic survival, economic, how can I say that, betterment in the country is. The first thing is, I think the United States and also the UN start the process of direct and indirect investment in the country. And secondly, know that if we compare, for example, the situation with Pakistan and India, there was all the time rivalries with the neighboring countries. So the only thing they say that the proper scenario would be that if we countries, as a country, as a nation, economically invest in each other country. So that would be a way that provide the economy will support the politics and also the security. So my point of view is, if we want to have a peaceful and prosperous country or nation in Congo and also in Africa, let us find the possibility for economic engagement. This economic engagement will find a possibility for political stability, and political stability will help the permanent security in the country.
Finally, Nixon, as we wrap up this conversation, what are your final thoughts on MONUSCO's withdrawal? Do you think it should be a gradual withdrawal, or should they just pack their bags and leave?
While I agree on the latter submissions by Ajmal, I think Ajmal should not ignore the fact that economic interests drive what are the political response mainly to state. States are not benevolent, and this is a pure realism approach in world affairs. They will always have to look after their own interests. Unfortunately, for the case of the Congo, this is what is happening. Now, in my view, and for the MONUSCO to leave, Congo needs to look at itself within and say, what is the position of the Congo vis-a-vis in international political economy, but also international global affairs? Once it defines what it means as a country, therefore the political leaders should design a program, strategic program that seeks to respond to those issues, whether it's to look at who become the strategic partner in terms of investment, in terms of security sector reform, in terms of the democratization of the country, but also in terms of strengthening the institution of the state. I think nothing will happen. And that has to derive from a political will on the part of the different players within our Western world and the Western colleagues to allow the Congo to thrive.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm afraid we've come to the end of today's program. I'd like to say thank you to you, Ajmal Sohail, Senior Counterterrorism and Counterintelligence and Geopolitical Analyst, joining us from Munich in Germany, and also Nixon Katembo, Analyst for Great Lakes and East Africa, joining live from Johannesburg, South Africa. I do appreciate your insights and contributions to the program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, the best way for MONUSCO to withdraw from the DRC involves conducting a comprehensive security assessment, strengthening Congolese security forces, implementing a gradual handover, engaging in political reconciliation, providing continued support if necessary, and fostering regional cooperation and conducting regular evaluations. This approach ensures a responsible and sustainable withdrawal while promoting stability and development in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Thank you very much for watching today's program. Remember to stay safe all the time. I am Gbenga Aborowa. See you next time on Secure the Continent. Bye-bye.